The life cycle for a product can be split into 5 distinct phases. The 5 phases will be development, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. As we all know, as a human being, we go through various stages in life cycle, starting from birth until death. Same case with product life cycle. A product stage of life cycle starts from research and development, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. And those stages can give us clear understanding on how to manage the cost and profit of a product and how to eliminate the unprofitable product. The first stage starts with R&D stage, where research and development involve high cost for the product and where sale is zero, so the profit is also zero. Then the introduction phase. As the name suggests, this is the stage where the product is introduced in the market. So at that time in the market, no one was aware about the product. We can say the characteristic of this stage is zero profit and negative sale. Spending more on promotional and advertisement expense. The risk of product failure at this stage is also high. Next of the product life cycle is the growth stage. This is when the product is growing gradually when the product is moving into the market. As we all know, the profit is very high at this stage. So the next stage is maturity stage. This is the stage where the product reaches the high end and decline of the product. At this stage, the characteristics are the profit will be steadily decline because there are many competitors. The last stage is decline stage. This is the stage when your sales and profit are going down. This is because there are new entrants and new competitors that sell better products. So at this stage, it is advisable for the company to eliminate the product.
What are we talking about when we talk about life cycle costing? We're talking about looking at the product over the whole of its life cycle. So, we'll no longer split up each of our periods of time into months, years, etc. etc. What we'll do is we'll look at the accumulated cost over the product's life. And that means from right at the very start, from the research and development phase, through the removal of the product from the market. So, we're not thinking about periods of time splitting up all costs into those periods of time. We're thinking about taking the total cost of the product over its life cycle from the start right through the end. So, the life cycle for a product can be split into 5 distinct phases. These phases will be development, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. I'm going to show you a graph and we'll discuss them shortly. And remember that the life cycle will be different for different products. Not all products will have the same life cycle. Some will have a very short life cycle. Some will have a very long life cycle. So, not all products will have the same life cycle. The key concept we need to remember when we're looking at the life cycle costing is that we're no longer looking at accounting periods. We're not thinking about period of time, a month, a year, etc. etc. What we're doing is looking at the whole of the product life cycle. We're going to estimate what the costs are going to be across the entire life cycle, and that will enable us to set a better price for our product. So let's look what are we talking about when we talk about allocating the cost to a product over its life cycle. Let's take a look at illustration 1. Illustration 1 looks at a product with a 4-year life cycle, and all of those costs are going to be incurred in different periods. What we need to do for life cycle costing is to add up the total cost that we're going to incur over the life cycle of the product. So that's what we're doing with life cycle costing. Rather than splitting up the cost per year, we're saying what is the total cost for this product over its life cycle. Now that we've seen how to allocate these costs to a product across its life cycle, let's discuss in a little bit more detail about those 5 phases of life cycle. So the phases, as I said, were 5, and we can graph them like this. So at the start, in the research and development phase, we have 0 sales because we're not selling anything, and because the product hasn't come to market yet, and we can see that our profit is going down, i.e. we're making a loss. Until the introduction phase is where we start making some sales. That profit will not start to go up. So cost with no revenue means that we're losing money. So our profit is going down. It's negative, we're making a loss. That profit will not start to go up. So after the introduction phase, we can see the sale begin, and the profit, instead of continuing going down, it starts to go up. But still, we're making a loss. As our sales grow towards the growth phase, that's when we'll start to make an actual profit. It will cross the break-even line and start to make profit. After growth, we start to see maturity. So this is where we're still growing sales and we're still making profit, but we're making less. That leads into decline, where sales start to decrease, profits start to decrease, and eventually a loss-making product. So there are some implications you need to understand. For pricing, first of all, well, under traditional method, we often write off research and development in the period in which they're encouraged. So we look at where we've incurred our research and development costs, and we write them off during that time. Now, what that means is that we're writing off R&D costs on new products against the revenue that's being generated by old products. That means that it can make the old product look less profitable because we're writing off the R&D costs against the revenue of old products. That doesn't happen under life cycle costing. Under life cycle costing, rather than allocate the cost to a period of time, we allocate the cost to the product over its life cycle. The product is then priced to cover the life cycle cost, and we can use that data to determine whether it's covering those costs or not. Also, when it comes to performance within the business, life cycle costing enables the business to recognize the fact that up to 90% of their costs will be research and development phase. So that means that they can focus the phase as short as possible and getting those products to market as quickly as possible. So they start to generate revenue, and it also enables them to track costs through the life cycle of the product. So they can see the overall when the product is profitable or not, and also enables the business to focus on early decisions, again by understanding that a lot of the costs are incurred at R&D phase. They can see that any of those decisions that made early on in the product feed through into costs later on. This enables the business to focus on this early decision to make sure that they got it right and ultimately minimize the time that it takes to get the product to market. The advantage of life cycle costing is that it gives more efficient resource allocation, because you can allocate the resource to the products that are going to make the most profit over the life cycle. We can track the cost to product rather than to time, and that enables us again to understand whether the product is profitable or not. And that identifies that relationship between the research and development phase and the ultimate cost of the product that is crucial for the business to understand. So that was our lecture about LCC. Make sure you attempt to test your understanding of questions.
We go to a party and everyone turns to see this beautiful lady. walking around with me. And then she asked me, do you feel alright? And I say yes, I feel wonderful.